Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Camila Williams. Thank you for joining us. Today, Mayo Clinic's leading experts on COVID-19 therapeutics, Dr. Andrew Badley and Dr. Raymond Raisinable, held a panel to discuss the new antiviral pills that could help with treatment of COVID-19. A Food and Drug Administration advisory panel has voted to recommend emergency use authorization for polyneuropivir, which treats mild to moderate COVID-19 infections in adults.
Given that the process for rollout of these drugs is very likely to mirror the rollout of the monoclonals and other drugs that have been used so far in the treatment of COVID, I anticipate that the initial cost will be covered by the federal government. And so it will be free in the near term.
Health officials in Arizona reported 3,820 new confirmed COVID-19 cases and 28 more deaths on Sunday as the pandemic's latest surge maintained its grip on the state. The latest numbers pushed Arizona's known death toll to more than 22,000 since the beginning of the pandemic. According to the state's COVID-19 dashboard, 2,697 COVID-19 patients occupied hospital inpatient beds as of Friday, just below the current surge's high of 2,714 the day before. It also says just 5% of inpatient beds in the state's crowded system were available on Friday. Will Humble, a former Department of Health Services director, said the increase in cases likely reflected continued vaccination resistance and more people getting tested following Thanksgiving gatherings. Homeland Security's only Native American specialized tracking team, the Shadow Wolves Unit, is ready for a change after nearly 50 years of patrolling the Arizona desert. Bills that seek to strengthen and expand the Shadow Wolves Authority were approved unanimously by the U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security in the past month. Since 1974, the elite unit has tracked smugglers across the 2.8 million acres of the Tohono O'odham Nation in southern Arizona and the 76-mile stretch of land bordering Mexico. Eviction filings are creeping up in Arizona, but they are not even close to the pre-pandemic levels as agencies do a better job of getting out rental aid. The U.S. Treasury Department projected that approximately $25 to $30 billion of emergency aid will be spent across the country by the end of 2021. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a massive impact on the development of children and teens. A survey done by Junior Achievement of Arizona found that more than a third of Arizona high schoolers need educational and emotional support due to the pandemic. Isabella Fredrickson has the details on the new federal funding to help in this effort.
On November 8th, Governor Ducey announced $1 million in federal funding will go to support the Arizona Alliance of Boys and Girls Clubs to help children and teens recover from the effects of the pandemic.
So this $1 million will fund up to 5,000 kids with learning and emotional support that's really critical for their development.
After not being in person with school for a year, kids did not have the chance to interact with others, and this took a toll on students of all ages' development and mental health. That's according to the Center of Reinventing Public Education. The center says 30 to 40% of young people experienced negative impacts on their mental and social emotional health during the pandemic.
But particularly when we talk about what do kids need today, coming out of COVID and going back to school, what we learned is that they really need programs that help them learn how to adapt their skills, their emotional development, communication, their leadership skills to be interacting with other kids. They were in lockdown for so long that they're coming back full of energy, but really need a little bit of help on some of these basic skill sets.
One program supported by funding is SMART Moves, which stands for Skills, Mastery, and Resilience Training. This program will help kids develop decision-making skills, as well as provide staff to help them navigate how to make the right choice.
There's over 100,000 kids that go to a Boys and Girls Club in Arizona, and we're so excited to have the opportunity to have this support so we can serve more kids and serve them better.
The Boys and Girls Clubs of Arizona will use this funding to support and improve their 4 after-school programs, which are academic success, healthy lifestyles, character and leadership, and college readiness. In Phoenix, Isabella Fredrickson, Cronkite News.
To find a Boys and Girls Club location near you, visit bgcaz.org. Moving now to the sports world, ASU will play in its 33rd bowl game and the 9th bowl appearance in the last 10 seasons. That's not counting 2020. It will be the Sun Devils' 3rd overall appearance in the Las Vegas Bowl and 2nd under Herm Edwards. Arizona State will take on Wisconsin on December 30th at 8:30 p.m. Next, we take a look back at stories about space and Arizona's research with NASA.
ASU is going to the stars with NASA in a mission to explore an unusual asteroid flying between Mars and Jupiter. From our Los Angeles bureau, Cronkite News reporter Jude Binkley tells us about the mission.
The Psyche mission is preparing to journey to a metal world. That's the slogan NASA and ASU are using to explore an asteroid that's about the size of Massachusetts. Known as Psyche, the asteroid is unique. It's composed of metal and may have been the core of another planet. NASA believes this will help us learn about how our Earth was formed.
I want to learn something about the materials that make our rocky planets. So Psyche might be part of the metal core of a little planetesimal that got broken apart in collisions, in which case it's the only way that humans are ever going to see the metal core of anybody, because we're never going to see the Earth's. But if this is what Psyche is, this will be the only one like it in the solar system.
The mission was selected in 2017 as part of NASA's Discovery program. In total, 800 people are working together on the expedition. The spacecraft is being built here at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena. In its final stages of assembly, the craft will then be put through a series of tests: vibration, electromagnetic, thermal vacuum, to make sure it can handle the launch and deep space.
We are in the fastest moving, most dynamic time of this project, because this is what's referred to as a planetary launch, and its timing is all coordinated with where Mars is going to be and where the other planets and bodies will be. We have one shot, a window of opportunity, about a month or so long, in August, that we have to launch.
After launch, the spacecraft will travel through space with electric-powered acceleration. The trip will take 3 years to reach Psyche, and they'll have the help of Mars to get there.
Getting to Psyche, we need to do what's called a Mars flyby. Basically, we are going to target going towards Mars, and we're going to catch up to Mars, and we're going to skin right by it. What that does is, it's a fairly big planet. It's got a lot of gravity, right? We don't want to land on Mars, but if you come up, the gravity will start to pull it and accelerate us, and then will slingshot us right around.
After reaching Psyche, the spacecraft will orbit it for 2 years. The craft will be taking images that will be sent to ASU and immediately shared with the world.
Because we really believe as a team that space exploration is for everyone on Earth. And one thing that we've developed is a pipeline such that when we get the images from the cameras back from Psyche, they'll come right to ASU, and we'll have them on the internet for anyone in the world to see within a half hour. And so the whole world will get to look at Psyche at the same time as the team.
The mission is less than a year away from takeoff. After it's completed all its phases at JPL, the spacecraft will then be shipped to Kennedy Space Center in Florida for a launch in August of next year. In Pasadena, Jude Binkley, Cronkite News.
Twice a day, every day, and all at the same time, weather balloons are launched across the world. They give scientists valuable information about what's going on weather-wise and what it means for us. Evan List tells us how this process works for Phoenix.
During the monsoon season in Arizona, it isn't uncommon to see massive thunderclouds towering to different heights in the sky. Some reach the top of the troposphere and spread out horizontally, while others only get to the middle before dying out. Scientists at the Salt River Project in Tempe launched our weather balloons during the summer to understand what's happening at these different levels of the atmosphere.
This is SVOMA, and I'm with Salt River Project, and we're about to launch a weather balloon.
As soon as SRP meteorologist SVOMA gets approval from Phoenix Sky Harbor,
all right, we can launch it.
It's launch time.
Great. Probably could give it a little more.
Once the weather balloon is up, it starts collecting data about its surroundings using an attached device called a radio sonde.
Measures temperature, how much water vapor in the air, that's humidity, pressure, And then as it moves with the wind vertically, it measures wind speed and direction.
Outside of the summer, Flagstaff and Tucson National Weather Service offices are Arizona's exclusive locations for radiosonde launches. However, for Phoenix, SRP steps in during the hottest months with local balloon launches that provide valuable information. This was particularly helpful during our very active monsoon season.
There were a lot of thunderstorms at many times of the day, but particularly the ones at night are important because it's when they usually happen. And then we launched the weather balloon the next morning and can see how those thunderstorms impacted the atmosphere and how that might impact the high temperature that day.
The data helps SRP figure out efficient power supply operations. It also helps the National Weather Service.
That helps us a lot to get a sense, certainly in the summertime, when you're really trying to figure out thunderstorms, what kind of instability do we have? In other words, what kind of potential is there for thunderstorm development?
As the SRP weather balloon program wraps up with the end of monsoon season, so may the above average rainfall in Arizona.
We're looking like we're definitely going into a La Nina situation.
Researchers at the University of Arizona are refurbishing a part of Biosphere 2 to see what life might look like when humans live on the surface of the moon or Mars. Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky sat down with team leaders to discuss the SAM project and living on the red planet.
30 years ago, the test module near Tucson was home to the original 8 biospherians who tried to live completely sealed from the outside world in a bioregenerative experiment with all of their air, water, and food produced and recycled by plants. But now, the module is home to a new project, looking to the future of our species.
There's something really powerful about becoming an interplanetary species and bringing life with us where we go to explore it.
In 2019, the test module had no experiments and no purpose. It laid at Biosphere 2 unused and abandoned. That was until Kai Stotts spotted it when he was taking a tour of Biosphere 2.
But it had been grown over, and there's weeds and cactus and rats, and both dead and alive. and I said to John, I said, what is this? What are you going to do with it? He says, well, that's the original prototype. We haven't done anything with it for almost 30 years. And he says, if you can find use for it, it's yours.
Stotts found a purpose and named it SAM, a space analog for the moon and Mars. Think of an analog as a station that sort of simulates what it would be like to live on a foreign planet. Stotts and the rest of his team spent most of this year refurbishing the test module into a Mars analog that they hope can lead to lots of findings about living on the Martian surface.
When you put somebody into a sealed environment, it changes the game across the board. It's no longer just camping. You're actually inside of this building, and everything you do, every breath you take, everything you drink, everything you eat, all of that stays in the environment.
Last June, Stotts, Trent Tresh, and 3 others were sealed inside SAM for over 4 hours to measure things like temperature, pressure, humidity, and carbon dioxide levels. One of the core objectives of SAM is to be the first Mars analog to clean air not by using CO2 scrubbers, but by solely using plants.
We're not going to want to rely entirely on mechanical devices. We're going to want to transition into functional greenhouses, which are called controlled environments. And long term, we want to grow our own food on Mars. And why not have the plants draw down that CO2 as well? They need CO2. We produce CO2. It's a good relationship.
Now, SAM is not the only astronaut analog out there. There have been a dozen astronaut analogs all across the world on every continent. But none of them have tried to go to the extremes of a completely sealed environment like SAM is trying to do.
Analog astronautics are, they're popping up everywhere. People want to get out there and train to be astronauts. They want to create tools to be used on their planets, and they need facilities to test those things in with proper research methods. So I see SAM as a huge springboard to support the future of humanity in space.
30 years after the original Biospherians left the test module, Stotts, Tresh, and the rest of the team are daring to once again seal themselves away from the outside world to show that maybe one day humans on Mars will live like the Biospherians tried to 30 years ago.
If humans ever settle on the Martian surface, it might not look identical to the SAM project, but there is no doubt in the minds of Stotts and Tresh that SAM will be a huge help in sustaining settlements on the moon and Mars for a long time. In the studio, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us. Next on Break It Down, we examine the increase in chronic disease among millennials and find out the obesity's epidemic impact. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.